Hello, and welcome to the CDL Files. My name is Marilyn. I'm with Driver's Legal Plan, and I am happy to be joined today by the one and only president of Driver's Legal Plan, Mr. Klepper. And our guests today are Dr. Mark Manera and Mr. Jeremy Reymer. Jeremy is the founder and CEO of Project 61, which is a nonprofit dedicated to improving health and wellness of truck drivers. And Dr. Mark Manera is the founder of Offshift that was just purchased by Project 61. And so today we're going to be diving into that and talking all things around drivers' health and why Project 61, why the combination with Offshift, and just really what is this mission, not only for Project 61, for Jeremy and Mark, but the bigger implications that these issues have on our industry, on our drivers, on all of us, really. And so we're going to dive into that today. So we're really excited. 61 comes to us not by happenstance, right? Like that is the statistic. Tell us about that, Jeremy. You first, and then Mark. Kind of, where does that come from, and what motivated you to start this mission?
Yeah, the name, and I founded the nonprofit last year. Project 61 name, is, the relevance of that number is that the average life expectancy of a commercial truck driver. That statistic has been out for maybe close to a decade now. I feel like I had heard it before, and maybe I did what most people do, and you just sort of bury your head in the sand, or you're busy with other things. You don't let it hit you, because if you do, it's pretty powerful, because that is really not okay. And so it was really that sort of motivated me to start this nonprofit. And then, obviously being able to work closely with Mark, acquire Offshift now gives the technological tool that we need to really, move the needle.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Mark, we're thinking about drivers, and, their job is hard. They face challenges that we don't face, right? And so what are some of the specific health risks and things like that drivers are facing on a daily basis that may be a little bit different than what we face, being in the office and supporting drivers?
And I'm sitting here with three industry legends, and I'm kind of like the only one here that's kind of newer to the industry. My background's in healthcare. I have a doctorate degree in physical therapy, and I got started with this whole problem and really saw, the 61 number from truck drivers coming in and walking into the clinic and rehabbing them in the healthcare piece of it. And from that experience, I saw firsthand just, what 20, 30 years behind the wheel can do to someone's health, and just the amount of chronic disease that's in this industry. And truck drivers have the highest rates of obesity and diabetes among any other occupation. The trickle down of that, and I think it's really across the whole US, is that, that impacts life expectancy, that impacts their quality of life through the years that they're living. The big stat that I saw is that truck drivers have a life expectancy of 61 years old. And, the fact that someone can get a CDL and, statistically take 16 years off the back end is, I just don't think anyone's career should define their health. And that's what really threw me into this. And as I got to know the lifestyle of a driver and understand what they go through on a day-to-day basis, it's really a lack of time. It's a unique barrier out on the road, and you get done driving, and I've gone on a long road trip and I get done, I'm mentally burnt out. And the last thing I want to do is go for a run and eat a salad. I want to veg out and watch Netflix. And, I think there's a lot of barriers that stop drivers. And when, that's a one-off day, during the summer and you're going on a road trip, that's okay. But when it's a day by day by day for 20, 30 years of your life, it adds up. And so for me, it's like, how do we shift the culture of the industry, and how do we give drivers resources that smack them in the face that it was built for them and their lifestyle out on the road, to make it as easy as possible for them to make healthier behavior changes?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We all travel. Thank you for calling us industry legends. I appreciate that. We all travel quite a bit, right? And that's how we all know each other so well. We see each other out on the road at industry things and kind of our industry family. And I couldn't agree with you more. I know how much it takes it out of me. And, I'm 42. I'm a lot more tired now, after an 8-day road trip than I was when I was, even 35, so it's like the older you get, it definitely does take a more of a toll on your body. And so I know when I'm on those trips, and road trips, it's harder. I think driving in the car, when you drive a long distance, it's actually seems to be harder on your body than whenever you fly. And that's when I always am thinking about drivers, right? That's when it's top of mind. And I'm empathetic, and I think this is their life every day. So I know I was first introduced to this number about a decade ago, talking about next gen stuff, right? And like reading the next gen, but it is a shocking number. Brad, what were your thoughts? Did you know about this number kind of before the whole Project 61, and what did you think about it when it kind of came out? What were your thoughts on the whole?
Well, I'd heard of it briefly, but once Jeremy got involved, it really brought to the forefront. Honestly, as someone who's approaching the age of 61 quickly, scares the hell out of me. And it's something that really needs to be brought to everybody's attention. We need to do everything that we can to support our drivers to raise that number. As you said, the lifestyle that behind a wheel is hard.
Yeah.
I spent 6 hours driving yesterday from a meeting. It's exhausting. 6 hours in a car, you're sitting, you don't think you're doing anything, but you're mentally tired, you're physically tired. We need to support drivers and give them tools to be healthy and change that number. 61.
Too low. And you two, you're here. You're the faces of the change. And so I agree. We need to give drivers resources so how do we do that? What, Mark, at Offshift, tell us a little bit about what you've done there to create, real programs and tools, resources that are usable, for drivers on the road.
Yeah, so a few years ago, I started Offshift. So we were a employee benefit that trucking companies could purchase as a part of their health plan, and we helped drivers prevent and manage obesity-related chronic diseases. So what that boiled down to was when a driver signed up, we paired them with a coach, and that coach created a custom health program for them through our app on their phone. And it was focused on helping them be more physically active and eating healthier. And so we built the whole thing around the lifestyle of a driver. And so we're not handing drivers, an hour-long workout that they have to find a gym to park their truck at, then get in there, then get back on the road. We're doing things like 5-10-minute workouts they can do in the back of their truck when they're waiting at a customer's to get reloaded. And on the nutrition side of things, very similar. Not handing them a meal plan and saying, hey, you got to cook all this food, but how can you eat healthier at the Love's Truck Stop or McDonald's attached to it, right? And really specific out on the road. And we went through that journey. We got into a handful of companies and started making a lot of progress at the driver level and working with more companies. And, as I became more, close friends with Jeremy and just seeing what he was doing with Project 61, I've always considered myself very mission driven. I got into this and, obviously Offshift was a for-profit startup that we were getting and going in. And, as Jeremy, who was starting Project 61 and I was working with Offshift, we were kind of rowing the boat in the same direction, and we kind of started looking at each other like, it'd probably be easier if we just jumped in the same boat together. And the opportunity and the wave that he was creating with Project 61 and just Jeremy as a whole, and his influence in the industry and his experience and knowledge of the industry as well, I couldn't imagine for a better landing spot for Offshift and for me just personally working with Jeremy and being able to kind of get mentored through that. I'm really excited about it. And so with the nonprofit and Offshift being acquired by Project 61, we are launching the industry's first free driver health program. So we're taking what we were doing at Offshift and completely opening it up for free. Companies, drivers, whoever in the industry wants to get involved, they will have a resource that's tailor-made for the industry and for the lifestyle that drivers face out on the road that they can access completely for free. And that to me is how we're going to start, pushing the needle and changing that 61 number.
Certainly feels like it, the Project 61, it definitely does have the movement. It's a movement, right? It feels like it's got that attention and it's got that energy. Kudos to you, and to both of you, but yeah, that's amazing to be able to offer that free to drive. I mean, that's
impressive.
That's impressive. Definitely. How are you guys able to do that? How are you able to offer it free it is so needed. And so, but what enables you guys to be able to bring this to the industry?
The nonprofit business model helps because if you can generate, donations, sponsorship dollars, grant money to help support the company, the business, then you can afford to open it up to everybody, as opposed to having a for-profit, entity where the only way we're able to make or generate any revenue whatsoever is just when companies purchase this solution, which is great. You'd want them to do that. But if the mission is to really move the needle, it can't be with just a handful of companies that are the ones paying for their own we need scale. right? And so to do this at scale, I may have shared this with you before, but one of the most influential companies that I would say that I've considered in scope of creating Project 61 is Truckers Against Trafficking, a nonprofit that I have supported for as long as I can remember. And I love the mission. And so I think there's a lot of similarity. There's a parallel there on something that really tugs at your heart. And I think addressing it from the nonprofit vantage point provides a greater opportunity for success.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
To your point, health is incredibly important for the driver. Everybody benefits from that, but a healthy driver also reduces risk in trucking.
Yep.
I mean, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly I like to believe that most people are altruistic and we want to support this purely from the humanity standpoint. But the reality is also that companies have a business to run, and they need, if they're going to spend money at all, even if it's just as a donation, it needs to be understanding that like there's a return on this. And that return, to your point, a healthy driver is a safer driver. They're far more productive, much reduce risk from a work comp standpoint and other insurance related issues, things that Mark was already dealing with his customers at Offshift and already helping those customers move the needle. And so I think they were seeing that return. And I think in theory, everybody understands that there is one. But when it is a for-profit entity, especially, they still have to make that investment up front. But it is that, just for the exact same reason that a company invests in their equipment. They spend a lot to buy this nice piece of equipment, or truck or trailer, and they PM the heck out of that thing if they do it right for as long as they can, for productivity's sake, for safety's sake. That's the right thing to do. And I would argue that a human is far more valuable of an asset than a piece of equipment.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, the driver really is the linchpin of all of it, right? If the driver isn't healthy, if the driver can't do what they need to do, then nothing else kind of matters, right? If the driver can't drive a truck, nothing else matters. And it's interesting, always be recruiting, right? Jeremy, you're, started in recruiting too, I really think that this is a benefit for our industry. When we talk about the next generation of trucking, which I know you guys are both involved with, and, we are at Drivers Legal Plan as well, is I think this is an attractive selling point, as an industry to the next generation, not just of truck drivers and technicians, but of recruiters and driver managers. And, to kind of say, here is an industry that cares, that cares about the people who are participating in that industry. And, here we have this. I think that there's a lot of ways for us as an industry to leverage, things like this, because it really does separate us, I feel like, from other industries.
Yeah. I think it's a great, you mentioned our trucking family. You were talking, we're out. That's exactly how it is. And you know that those who have been around long enough, like you build relationships that last a lifetime. The industry is very special like that. And around this cause, building community around this effort is what's really important. And I think it's important to note too, this is so much bigger than me. It's so much bigger than Mark or any of us. Like this is, like you said, this is a movement. I'm honored to be spearheading, as much as I can of that movement, but it is so much bigger. So we've got a lot of work to do for sure.
Yeah, it is. It is going to take all of us. And, we're happy to have you guys on to just talk about the mission. Awareness is first, right? And so this is really cool. And, the acquisition of Offshift, how do you see, Jeremy, and I know you guys have been rowing in the same direction. You've been on tons of panels together and all those things. And how do you really see the acquisition of Offshift enhancing Project 61 and broadening that mission?
So you mentioned awareness. That's what has been happening for a little over a year related to Project 61. But I didn't really have two things. I was a little preoccupied with another company that I was involved with. So until that exit, I didn't have the luxury of really leaning in with both time and resources in Project 61. But also awareness is important. That softens the ground, but you got to move awareness to action. And that's really what the acquisition of Offshift allowed. I'm a firm believer that there's no way you're going to address this industry issue at scale if technology isn't a foundational component. And so there are not a lot of options. I could have built something, and I was actually considering that. And candidly, I knew what I was going to build could eventually become a competitor to Offshift. Well, that's not really what I was trying to accomplish here, but I do like the fact that this already exists, and I know Mark well, and I know his team, and I think that is, what makes the most sense. And when we talked through it, it just made a lot of sense, and we were able to move fairly quickly. And yeah, I think we're really excited. Mark might be able to share a little bit about what's coming in September and October and beyond, because that's what I think the momentum will only increase from here.
Yeah. So in September, we're launching out the free program. So every single driver, every single company will be able to access our app, and within the app, they'll get a daily workout that they can follow along, right? Either inside the back of their truck, outside of their truck, or at home, depending on where they're at in the world. They also will have weekly nutrition habits where we'll focus on small chunked habits that they can do anywhere and educate them on how to do it at the truck stop or fast food restaurant, or even preparing it in their truck. And then we're also going to be doing industry-wide monthly challenges. So October 1st is when that first one's launching, and we're bringing back what really launched Project 61, which is the 61-day step challenge.
Okay.
Within our app, everyone's going to be able to connect a wearable, whatever wearable, or if you have just your iPhone or Android phone, you can use that as well. And then within, you'll have different leaderboards. And so your company can have their own custom leaderboard, and you can see all your coworkers or other people that you invite to your team and compete against them in a step challenge on a daily basis and throughout the 61 days.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
The challenge part was really fun when we did this last year, at the end of last year, November and December, 61-day step challenge. This was not in Offshift's app. It was in a download, step up app that was free. A lot of limitations, but still it was so engaging, and so many people it really changed their trajectory into the holidays.
Yeah.
Because they were so much more focused on movement, and so they started eating better. They started getting better sleep. It was encouraging.
No, I remember seeing the leaderboards when you were doing that the first time, and all the people I knew. And, me personally, when I get on something like that, I've got just enough competitiveness in me to, to want to win. So I think it's great. It's a great way to tap into people's inner competitiveness and help them become more healthy.
Yeah, and there's some accountability when you see some of the folks, like somebody you might see there. What are you doing today? Did you even get out of bed? And then sometimes, some people are like, what, did you run a marathon? And sometimes, that did happen.
Yeah.
A few times.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw a couple of people that I know run 6 miles a day, and I'm like, well, okay,
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that.
I try to get my 10,000 steps today, and I do think it is awareness, I come back to that word because if it makes you think about it, right? If it just makes you think about it, so you take more steps, that week, it's those little things, it's kind of those little things that make a difference.
Being
Park the car farther away from the door.
Right.
You do the little things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do that all the time. It drives my kids nuts. Well, it did at
I do it
first.
too.
They're okay with it now, but at first they were like, Dad, of course, it's the middle of winter. It's freezing cold.
Yeah.
We're walking across the whole, parking lot to the grocery store.
Yeah. You got to get them out of Indianapolis if you want to park far away in the winter,
Right.
So if people want to join the movement, I know I went out and signed the pledge, and drivers want to get these resources. Where do people go if they want to join the movement?
Yeah, so go to project-61.org. That's our website. And when you're on there, you can sign the Trucker Health Pledge. That's step one. That's going to, it's kind of an affirmation towards, hey, I want to be a part of the solution and I want to be, part of this movement and join. We've got hundreds of trucking executives and companies that have already signed it. And, it's starting to make its way across social media, which is really exciting as well, because when you tell someone to post something on social media, they have to go do some extra work to go do that. And so the fact that we're getting people out there and people are like, what the heck is this Trucker Health Pledge? That's awesome. And we're really excited about that. And then from there in September, take a look at being able to get your drivers involved in our app, in our program, and then join the challenges as they launch later this fall.
Yeah, I was going to say on the app, or I should say on the website, by not only is it an affirmation, the Truckers Health Pledge, that you care and that you support our drivers, but also you're in our database now, so we can communicate with you with newsletters, with launch updates, with app updates as things are rolled out, with challenge updates and other information, promotions of our sponsors and companies that are supporting the effort and that sort of thing. So, and really just building community.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't been excited about the community so far.
Yeah. And, you're doing a lot of things, great things, bringing awareness to it. Do you have anything else coming up for Project 61 that we need to be aware of?
Well, I'm a big supporter of the importance of nutrition and food, right? So I had
Absolutely.
lunch today. I won't say with who it was with yet, but somebody who's close to some of the one of the major truck stop operators. And what I've heard consistently from that group in general is how much they support, just drivers' health in general, and that they have made efforts in the past to address it, whether it's with nutrition or with building a gym or something like that, and to limited success, candidly. But in this area, they feel there's a really good opportunity. And I think that drivers, that's the one area that they can control the most, is what they eat. Because if you're sitting for 11 hours of your day in a truck, like that's your job. Like, it's hard, but you
Absolutely.
got to be really intentional when you're not driving to move. But then you are still eating. You're eating 3-4 times a day on average. And so what are you eating? It's important that you're intentional about what you're taking with you in preparation, but then also when you do go someplace, to make smart decisions. But you got to have that sort of food available to you as well. And then you got to buy that food,
Absolutely.
and not buy well, yeah, but I can get all this other stuff for $2.99. Well, that's not human food though.
Yeah.
Edible substance. That's about it.
Absolutely right.
So I think that's the direction on the maybe not quite so short-term horizon, but intermediate is really working closely with the truck stop operators to ensure that they've got enough really healthy food options. And whether it's through another provider of that food or for the truck stop itself, or if Project 61 ends up having some sort of food, options that are available there. At the end of the day, somebody needs to do that, and we will promote it.
Yeah, absolutely. No. And, Jeremy, you're talking about the benefit of having nonprofit. And I think that is another benefit to your point about with this being a nonprofit and something that benefits the entire industry. It really does allow people to get involved with whatever way they can, and truck stop or whoever, and you don't have to worry about competition, or anything. This is to help the industry and help drivers. And so we couldn't be happier. We're happy. We're happy that you guys joined us today. We support the mission. We will have you back on the CDL Files, along the way to give us updates. Does anybody have any closing thoughts or anything that we can not stop recording until our audience hears?
Project-61.org. Sign the Trucker Health Pledge. Be a part of the movement.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
Amen to that. Yeah. Thank you guys for joining us, and tune in to the next episode of the CDL Files.